So this is the next nakshatra we have. Now we're beginning the second set of 9, which begins with Magha Nakshatra.
Correct. And Magha Nakshatra, here we have the point where the soul is becoming completely encased in its, for lack of a better way to put it, its material sheath. It's becoming materialized.
Okay.
And there's a process that goes on here. And part of that is symbolized by the fact that that Magha is represented by a palanquin or a chariot. Palanquin being what the nobility was carried through the village on the back of either an elephant or on the back of people carrying the nobility through the village. Okay. So there's an encasement of the individual, an encasement of the nobility, an encasement of the soul, so to speak. But there's also, with this particular nakshatra, there's the realization of where one has been, what one has been before. But that's something I want to pause with that particular point, because there's the recognition of what one has been before. So with Magha Nakshatra, there can always be a process that relates to looking back at something.
Which is why it's related to the ancestors, right? Kind of.
It's related to the ancestors, yeah, and we're definitely going to explore that. Okay. So it looks back and it remembers, this is who I was, this is what I was, and now I'm here. And a couple of different things happen. It either gets, it's either rather agitated or frustrated, and it's wanting to reclaim that inherent potential. Or it tries to reclaim that inherent potential in a very destructive way by going, wow, I'm running the show now. Here I am, right? And so we can see how this begins to develop. The deity connected with this, you mentioned the ancestors, it's the Pitris, which are the ancestral deities. And they function somewhat like guardian angels. And their purpose is to guide the course of evolution. So here you have that soul becoming completely encased, and the Pitris are here to guide the course of the evolution of that divine seed now that it's manifested. They don't intervene unless their influence is direly needed in a particular situation. Otherwise, their influence, it just happens through their subtle presence, so to speak. Because if you follow the analogy that they don't want to interfere, the reason they don't want to interfere is because, well, to go through this experience of incarnation and to go through this experience of evolution, which is, if we want to guess a reason as to why we're all here, it's to go through an evolution of the soul, through the soul's journey, so to speak. In order to do that, you need a strong sense of individuality in order to do it in a healthy manner. You need to know yourself so that you can develop yourself. So on one level, and it becomes really confusing when you use the word ego, on one level, an ego is needed. That sense of individuality is needed for the process. And the Pitris don't want to interfere with that part of the aspect. They want the individual to work it out themselves. Mm-hmm. Right, so that goes on, right?
So people with Magha Nakshatra, I remember like Paramahansa Yogananda's chart, and I think he had Magha, his ascendant degree was in Magha, and also his moon was in Magha. And a lot of astrologers, I remember listening, describing as though that's the reason he was so interested in preserving the lineage, or like there was a very strong aspect to his spirituality revolving around passing on the lineage or continuing a lineage. So I'm just curious with the Magha Nakshatra, if people who have their moon or ascendant lord or ascendant in this particular nakshatra, would they typically have a focus on their ancestor or their lineage or where they come from? And I'm curious, like if it's a good situation, then that could be a positive thing. If it's a bad thing, can it be sort of holding too much on to the past or trying to define oneself too much on what came before versus being appropriate, right now, in regard to what's going on in their life?
I have found that to be very much the case. Let's use the unhealthy example first. I've encountered quite a lot of charts with people that have a poorly supported planet in Magha Nakshatra. And quite often they're carrying something ancestral, because if we look at the concept that as individuals we have karma that we're here to work through, well, as families or as being connected to a specific ancestral lineage, there is also that group karma.
Right.
That is there. There's the karma of our ancestors. And quite often that energy will get handed down generation after generation after generation. Let's use an extreme example, so to speak. Let's say somebody had a father who was physically abusive. It could have been that his father before him was the same way, and so on back through time. And then there reaches a point where somewhere along the line, somebody has to go, enough is enough. Here I am to make sure that doesn't get handed down again. Mm-hmm. So quite often with a poorly supported planet or a poorly supported Ketu, which is the ruler of Magha, based upon the ruling planet of Ketu, because with Ketu and Rahu, it's always the planet that rules them. But with a poorly supported Ketu, or a poorly supported planet that's in Magha Nakshatra, then it can be that the person is carrying ancestral baggage.
Well, just out of curiosity, what you just said kind of led me to think about this. So if we think about K2, we think about its relationship to the past and past lives, and where we've come from, what we've done, and how we've tried to define ourselves in the past. And we use Rahu to figure out where we're going and what to put attention on. I'm curious. So if we look at K2 and we determine what K2 is indicating by his very nature, based on the house he's in, planets he's with, sign he's in, and let's say there is a planet in Magha, could it be that that particular kind of karma that person is coming from, or either evolving beyond or letting go of, it will have the color of K2 in a sign and in a house, just because of that's the way it works in the chart. But could we look to the planet in Magha to kind of see a more specific kind of karma that person is coming from, or letting go of, or working through?
I think I got that.
Okay. Let me try. Let me try again. So, all right. So when I look at a person's birth chart,
mm-hmm.
and I look at K2, what I first look at is, okay, what sign or house is K2 in? And let's say it's in, we'll just say the 10th house. Mm-hmm. So if K2 is in the 10th house, that's going to tell me that the person put a lot of definition in regards to who they are as an individual based on their activity in the world, because that's what the 10th house represents. Right. Or even association with maybe authority figures, or being an authority figure, or status. And so that will tell me where they're coming from karmically and what they're aiming to let go of. But now, let's say I happen to notice that there is a planet in Magha, and it can be any of the planets, but knowing that planet's in Magha, which deals with the ancestors, which deals with the past, and it's ruled over by K2, can I then look to the planet in Magha to see, all right, what does this planet represent? And can that give me some more detailed information about where this person is coming from in regards to past lives, what they're trying to evolve from based on their past lives or their ancestors? So just as a way to kind of dial in a little bit more, possibly what K2 is doing, assuming there's a planet in this nakshatra.
Right. Yeah, I got you on that. It's interesting as you said that, because one of the things that immediately came to mind is that particular planet that's in Magha, right? Yeah. And the houses that particular planet rules over will be the areas of their life that they're playing out that past karma through. Right. You see my point?
Yes.
And also whatever that planet indicates. Let's say, for instance, it's the sun. Well, that's both career, but it's also one of the indicators for father. Mm-hmm. So we could say that might come from the father's side if we found other supporting factors that were indicating that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Very good. That's just a thought that came to mind. I thought it might be worth exploring.
It's so very deep that you can go with that. Whenever I see something in Magha, I am quite often tempted to go into the Dwadashamsha, obviously the Varga chart about ancestors.
Right.
See what's going on.
Yeah.
With a lot of that. And you can carry it pretty deeply with that.
Yes, and so for those of you that don't know, the Varga chart he was talking about, that's the 12th divisional chart for looking at ancestral influences.
Correct.
Okay, good.
So,
well, anyway.
But it's interesting because one analogy I wanted to draw here, if we look back to Bharani Nakshatra and the fact that Bharani Nakshatra was about to transition along one line.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have a transition that's being repeated. Right. Those two energies, they have a similar connection with each other on some levels. With Bharani Nakshatra, if we look at it as being connected with Yama, well, Yama is ushering the soul to the other world, but that soul is temporarily in limbo while it's reflecting back over its past life before it's shifted on to the next form of existence.
Right.
Well, here we have that becoming more materialized. The soul's coming into being at this particular point. Mm-hmm. I've always found there's a connection between those two things. And if we look at the Shakti and the basis above, below, and the result, etc., we can see how that's being played out, because the Shakti of Magha Nakshatra is the power to leave the body. Now, you were using the Yogananda analogy. It's a very good placement, Magha Nakshatra, for people who are into yogic practices. Mm-hmm. Because part of it is going to be, one of the relationships with Magha Nakshatra is the ability to transcend body-related things.
Right.
You can generally find that people who are involved in a line of work that involves them having to overcome the restrictions of the body, they could have a prominent career planet in Magha Nakshatra. Mm-hmm. Because it gives the power to leave the body.
Right.
So with the basis above with Magha, the basis above is mourning. So if we think of the concept that as the spiritual impulse is coming into material form, the heavens are mourning. They're mourning the process of something coming into creation, right? The basis below here on the earth, leaving the body. So it's leaving the realm of immersion in the superconsciousness, whatever it is you want to call it, leaving the body of the soul and coming here into birth. The result of that is death or transformation. Yeah. Quite often with Magha Nakshatra, I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, there's the looking back at something that once was. And what is mourning or what is grieving on one level? Well, it's a celebration of something that once was. It's recognizing the worth of something that might have been in your life previously. But it's important that you don't hang on to that particular factor, because something new is coming into birth. Just as with Magha Nakshatra, something new is coming into creation. The three gunas that are connected with Magha are tamas at its basis, tamasic at its basis, and it builds upon that with rajasic energy at both levels.
Right.
Okay. Having to be firm in letting go of something, but bringing something new into being. Yeah.
And this is important. I know you're going to hit this when we get to the next nakshatra, but just so that people can see how this ties together, this is important because the next nakshatra deals with the power of creation.
Right.
Right. So this idea of mourning, leaving the body, and death, and that being a celebration, and you have to let go of it. The reason you have to let go of it, something new coming. Why? Because the next nakshatra, the Shakti, happens to be the power of creation. So I just wanted to interject that so people could start thinking about how these things tie together. So you were on the gunas, and I believe you were going to the primary motivation.
No. And I'm glad you actually did introduce that. And what we'll do to kind of illustrate that point when we get into Purva Palguni is we'll talk about the basis above, below, and the result first, because that really ties in with all of this, right?
Yeah.
So the primary motivation with this nakshatra is artha, goal-directed. It's got a specific directive in mind that it wants to achieve. Mm-hmm. If you take that as the foundation, then you can understand that the Trimurti association with this is actually Brahma. This is a very creative nakshatra. It's where something new is being created. Something new is coming into form.
Right.
So that's it for Magha nakshatra.
Okay. Okay. Good.